You're in the market for a new electric vehicle. You have about $50,000 to spend, but you'd like to buy one that still qualifies for the federal tax credit, and it needs to have room for the kids. So that means no Teslas, and sadly, no Mini Cooper electric. Now, luckily, there are more EVs on sale today than there have ever been before, but why not consider this? The 2021 Volkswagen ID.4. This one has about 240 miles of range. It has all-wheel drive, and hey, it's from a brand that literally means the people's car. The ID.4, at the very least, is a sensible choice. But maybe you want your family-friendly electric vehicle seasoned with something a little more exciting. Well, 50 years ago, if you wanted to buy something that would make you feel young again, you bought a Mustang, and in 2021, you can do the same. This Mustang Mach-E also has all-wheel drive. It also has room for 5 people and their stuff. It has 270 miles of range, but most importantly, it has that little horse on the front. Before we compare these two electric vehicles and decide which one is the better buy, don't forget to subscribe to the CarGurus YouTube channel, and then hit the bell so you get a notification when we upload new videos. The ID.4 is friendly, approachable, and round. It's a simple design, and it's not aggressive or intimidating in the slightest. The front end design, specifically these honeycomb patterned headlights and the white emblem centered along this light bar, it all looks amazing, but otherwise, taken as a whole, there's not actually a ton to write home about. The C-pillar has this silver treatment, which paired with the black roof gives it a bit of a three-tone style. The wheels on our test car are surprisingly massive, 20 inches. Despite the hatchback-like jelly bean design and the scant 6.7 inches of ground clearance, the ID.4 really is a crossover, and it's suited for family duty. Behind the rear seat, there's 30.3 cubic feet of cargo space, and that's more than my Subaru Forester has. But it falls a bit short when you fold that rear seat down. The total 64.2 cubic feet is less than most gas-powered cars of the same size. Volkswagen says it's going after regular crossover shoppers, the folks who buy a Honda CR-V or a Toyota RAV4, not people in the market for a Tesla, but you wouldn't know that from the interior, where the ID.4 really makes waves. This is not my mom's old VW Rabbit. The seats are beautiful and techy and so comfortable. The cabin is wide open, it's airy. This space between the front seats is startlingly empty. I mean, you have a couple of cup holders and then this little cubby down here, the nice space for your phone. But that's it. There's plenty of space in the rear too, and the ID.4's flat floor and massive panoramic roof make it feel extra roomy. VW has also included an ambient lighting package that really makes this car feel special at night. And this light up here means the ID.4 is smart too, or it would seem that way. In reality, the ID light, it's not as smart as the Google or Amazon voice assistants that we've become accustomed to. Generally, it will understand me fine. It'll turn on the driver's heated seat if I tell it my butt's cold. It'll even tell me a joke, but its timing is really clunky. I mean, it'll tell a joke, but it wouldn't exactly kill in a comedy club. If I wait a beat too long, it misses my instructions entirely and it just interrupts me. And the sheer amount of touch capacitive buttons is a recipe for frustration. Typically you get a set of car keys and you climb in and just go, but with the ID.4, I found myself looking at the owner's manual a lot. I even had to look up instructions on how to adjust the side view mirrors, and that stuff is supposed to be simple. I also spent a lot of time looking for the ignition button, which is down here on the steering column, kind of hidden from sight when you're sitting in the driver's seat. But it turns out I didn't need to even look for that button, because you climb in and the ID.4, it senses that you're there and it's just ready to go. It's a little eerie, but it also shows me that in 5 or 10 or 20 years, we might look at things like keys or ignition switches and say, well, those are just silly. To get going, Volkswagen uses this rotating shifter. Roll it away from you to get it to drive, and roll it back to get to reverse. Park is set by a button on the side. While a lot of EVs will dial up their regenerative braking to allow for one-pedal driving, the ID.4 never quite gets there. There's a B mode that will amp up the regen, but it never quite gets to the point where the car will come to a full stop. Thanks largely to Tesla, we sort of expect all EVs to be fast. The nature of the electric motors allows for a ton of torque, which means the fastest electric cars can lay waste to pretty much anyone from a dead stop. But the ID.4 is, it's not fast. Even with all-wheel drive, which bumps the power output up to 295 horsepower and 339 pound-feet of torque, it just feels a little pokey. It'll zip around nice and quiet, but it's not a sports car. If you want something with a little more drama, you have to look to the Ford. Oh yes, this is more like it. This little horse right here. This made so many people mad, but from where I'm sitting, it makes perfect sense. This car isn't breaking news anymore, because we've gotten used to the Mustang badge on a four-door EV crossover, but that doesn't mean this won't still turn heads. The long hood, the sequential taillights, the fastback silhouette. The Mach-E is defined by style and by the Mustang brand. The VW ID.4, it's totally sensible. The Mach-E makes a statement. 346 horsepower, 428 pound-feet of torque outclasses the all-wheel drive ID.4 Pro S, as does the Mach-E's 270 miles of range. Ford packages the Mach-E with three distinct drive modes: Whisper, Engage, and Unbridled. Hokey? Yes. But this trim will do 0 to 60 in about 5 seconds, and there's a new Mach-E GT trim that's fast enough to send you straight to prison. Now the thing with EVs is they're so heavy that the bad ones, it's like pushing a pallet of, I don't know, it's like pushing a pallet of something heavy, of like computer paper. It's like pushing a pallet of computer paper around on an ice rink. It's incredibly heavy, and yes, it has this low center of gravity, but the suspension just can't wrangle all of that weight. Well, that is not the case with the Mach-E. This car feels crisp and taut, more so than the ID.4. The downside is that this means the Mach-E has a bit of a rougher ride over bad pavement than the ID.4, but it's still pretty compliant. The ID.4 has a smaller battery, 82 kilowatt hours compared to 88 in the Mach-E, and as such it has a smaller range. But it's actually the more efficient of the two vehicles, which makes sense considering how much more power there is in the Mustang Mach-E. What's more practical is the charging time. On 240 volts, the ID.4 will take about 7.5 hours to charge to full battery capacity versus 10.7 in the Mustang Mach-E. On a DC fast charger, they'll go to 80% in about 45 minutes, again, a little quicker for the Volkswagen. The EPA measures efficiency in electric vehicles by kilowatt hours per 100 miles driven. Now that number in the Volkswagen is 36, in the Ford it's 37. So the question you have to ask yourself is, would you rather have the added performance of the Mustang Mach-E or the incremental efficiency gain of the Volkswagen? And for me, it's the performance every time. The Volkswagen looks decidedly tech forward, but the Ford is surprisingly down to earth. Both of them feature plenty of plastic, but in terms of interior design, I tend towards the Ford. I mean, sorry, those are windshield wipers. This fabric trim, this feels like it came from a Volvo. It's comfortable and it's practical. There's a bit less cargo space behind the rear seat and with the rear seat folded, but there's a little frunk under the hood, which the VW ID.4 doesn't get. And rear seat passengers still have plenty of legroom and a sunroof just as massive as the Volkswagens. One look at the big vertical touchscreen and it's obvious Ford was influenced by Tesla. Everything is housed within this massive touchscreen, even the HVAC controls, which annoys some people. Now, there is a massive volume knob, but other than that, it's all touch capacitive, and a lot of people, including me, don't love it when automakers forego physical buttons and instead try and get all that info on the screen. However, I'm gonna give some credit to Ford here because at least this is very clear and easy to understand and to operate. The same can't always be said about the ID.4. Using this infotainment system yields a combination of oohs and ahs and ihs and gross. The display is huge. It's bright, it's crisp and colorful, but the reliance on touch capacitive buttons paired with the gloss black trim leads to a disgusting array of fingerprints and smudges. It's not always sensible either. These icons, they control your temperature and your volume, but they get in the way if I try and rest my hand here to touch other icons on the screen, and you can hardly see them, particularly at night. And then there's the radio controls. I can see how organizing channels by category or genre might seem helpful, but please just give me a list of channels to browse through. On the bright side, this permanent home button is hugely helpful, and Android Auto, wireless, it works beautifully and looks incredible. These are small wins in a system that otherwise just seems like it's trying to push too far forward into the future. And that's sort of the story with these two vehicles. The ID.4 has all the party tricks and it looks very tech forward, but not all that tech feels fully baked. The Mustang is just simpler. It still looks impressive with that big screen, but it doesn't try to do quite as much. However, I believe that technology is more often than not just a story of familiarity. Live with the ID.4 for a month, and what I view as frustrating shortcomings, you'll likely learn to live with as just idiosyncrasies. The real reason that I take the Mustang Mach-E in this battle of family-friendly EVs is how it drives. Even with all-wheel drive, the ID.4 just can't match the excitement of the Ford. Tell us what you think in the comments section below. For more detailed reviews on each individual vehicle, you can watch them on the CarGurus YouTube channel, or head to cargurus.com to read our full written reviews. As always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time.